Here's the thing about cliché content. It doesn't just underperform on social, it actively trains your audience to ignore you. Every time you post something forgettable or cliché, you're teaching your followers that there's no reason to pay attention to you. Hey, and welcome back to the Social Media CX Show. I'm your host, Brooke, CEO of B Squared Media, author of Conversations That Connect, and someone who has spent the last decade trying to convince brands that social media is not a billboard. It's not going super well for some of them, but we'll keep trying. Last month, we spent 4 weeks going deep on the social penetration theory, a 1973 relationship framework that, as it turns out, explains basically everything about why some brands build real communities on social, while others just post into the void. If you missed that series, go back, start with week 1. I promise you it'll change how you think about content forever. But today we're turning the page. June is all about care. Not the feeling, although we'll get there, but the framework. CARE. It's a conversation coding system I built and wrote about in my book, Conversations That Connect. And over the next 4 weeks, I'm going to show you exactly how it works. And more importantly, why it's the clearest path to building return on investment or an ROI case for social care that your C-suite will actually listen to. Today, we're starting with C, conversations. A few years back, I got a call from an insurance company. Now, I want you to picture that for a second. Insurance. Not exactly the industry you'd think of when someone says killer social media presence, right? Their team knew that too. So when I got on the phone with them, the vibe was almost apologetic. Our customers don't really engage with insurance brands. Sorry. We've tried posting and nothing really happened. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. They brought me in to do an in-house training for their team, and the goal was to teach them how to build a social strategy around conversations instead of campaigns. And when I got in front of that room and I looked at their content, oh boy, it was exactly what you would expect. Stock photos, generic captions, protect what matters most with picture of a stock umbrella or something. Yeah, the kind of content that exists purely to fill a calendar and make someone in marketing feel like they showed up that day. Pure cliche layer. If you did May with us, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't, you got to go back and listen to the first episode in May where we talk about cliches. Here's the thing about cliche content. It doesn't just underperform on social. It actively trains your audience to ignore you. Every time you post something forgettable or cliche, you're teaching your followers that there's no reason to pay attention to you. So we blew up their content, totally blew it up. We started from scratch with one simple premise. We're going to stop broadcasting and we're going to start asking. So we introduced polls, simple, low stakes, genuinely curious questions directed at their audience, not which policy is right for you. Nobody's answering that, y'all, and you know this. But questions that open the door to real conversation, questions that made people feel like the brand actually wanted to hear from them. And then do you know what happened? They went from essentially 0 engagement and crickets to over 3% engagement every single month on an insurance brand. Y'all, 3% engagement every month is really good because average engagement is about 3-ish percent, 3.5 to under 3, depending on your brand. But this was an insurance brand. I told you this stuff works. And my favorite part, they had me come in to train them and to give this training, but they decided that they wanted us to do it for them. So we became their social media management partner. That's how good it feels when this stuff starts working, y'all. So what actually happened there? This isn't magic. It's not a lucky post that went viral. It was a shift in how they thought about social from a content distribution channel to a conversation channel. That is the foundational shift in the CARE framework. C stands for conversations. Conversations are the baseline. Before you can tag acquisition signals, A, before you can identify retention risk, R, before you can turn engagement into actual business intelligence, E, you have to start having these conversations on social, and most brands just simply aren't doing it. Not really. They're publishing, they're scheduling, they're hitting post and crossing their fingers, but they're not actually talking to anyone for the most part. They're talking at everyone. The difference sounds subtle, but y'all, the results are not. Here's what I want you to understand about the C in CARE. Conversations are not a vanity metric. They are not a nice to have. They are raw material for every single business insight that comes later in this framework. No conversations, no acquisition data. No conversations, no retention signals. No conversations, no engagement intelligence. You cannot build an ROI case for social on a feed full of scheduled posts and 0 replies. The conversation layer is where everything starts. And if you're sitting there right now thinking, but our audience doesn't engage, I want you to go back to this insurance company. If an insurance brand can get to a 3% monthly engagement just by how they showed up in the conversation, you can totally do this too. The question isn't whether your audience will talk to you. The question is if you're giving them anything worth responding to. And you're probably not. All right. Now, I'm not just going to leave you hanging with just start conversations, y'all, and no roadmap. If you're still in that place where your content feels flat, where you're posting and hearing crickets, where you genuinely don't know how to shift from broadcasting to conversing, I built a course especially for this moment. It's called Talk-Worthy Content. It's where I teach you exactly how to create content that opens conversations instead of closing them, polls, opinion content, the social penetration or SPT layers we talked about in all of May. It's all inside of this course. You can find it at bsquared.media, run over to resources, courses, and then choose Talk-Worthy Content. Start there. It's totally free. Literally, all it takes to start this course is your email. Get those conversations flowing because next week, week 2 of the CARE series, we're talking about what to do with those conversations once they start happening. Specifically, we're talking about how to identify which ones are actually pre-purchase signals hiding in plain sight. That's right, pre-purchase signals. Money. We're getting to money in week 2. Spoiler alert. Also, there are way more of these acquisition signals than you think. As always, y'all, if this show is helping you think differently about customer experience, social media, return on investment on social media, please rate and review us wherever you're listening or watching this podcast right now. It helps me bring on more brilliant voices and keeps our community growing with intention. Until next time, think conversation, not campaign.